So you were going to speak about the recruitment process. Are you suggesting that we recruit more men into the police force with the present structure, which some people have said cannot give us results?
Not necessarily. You see, the point I'm making, the recruitment process has to be sanitized. In the SSS, for instance, I tell you, before you are employed, you have what we call vetting, a whole person concept. Right from the day you were born to the day you are applying, there shouldn't be a gap. But what we have now, politicians bringing known talks in their various communities to be recruited into the army and police without finding out their background. Who are they? And when the people do, they'll be surprised to see that somebody who was serving as a talk, a political talk, adorning police uniform, adorning military uniform. What have you succeeded in doing? You are arming the people against the society. And that's why we'll continue to have this problem.
Are you saying then, Mr. Ejiofor, that some of the security operatives we have, perhaps some of the people that you said were involved in your own kidnapping, you know, some of these people that you just talked about, unvetted personnel?
Of course, because it's not everything we come to here on air to speak on. From their discussions, you can see their background. Although they are not illiterate, but they discuss something in their barracks, their disgruntlement, the lack of welfare, because I had to engage them. And they review some of these things that if you hear some of them on air, we'll marvel. So we don't need to go further, but what I'm saying is that the services need to do some in-house searching to fish out the bad eggs. Because, in fact, some of them tell you they hire their guns. How do they get their guns? That is not just solely the problem. I'm not saying that the service personnel, but there is a collaboration. There is a compromise. That's the point I'm trying to make. We have a lot of crises, origin we cannot even identify. In the Northeast, you have a Boko Haram terrorists. You call them Boko Haram terrorists. In the Northwest, they are bandits. In the Middle Belt, they are headsmen. In the Niger Delta, they are militants. In Southeast, they are agitators. So every geopolitical zone has its own problem. And that's why I said that government must come out strictly with a policy to look at how these are security challenges will be for. Because, you see, I don't want to veer off, because we have different kinds of kidnap. Luckily for us, we have not started witnessing political kidnap. What we are witnessing now is our basic kidnaps and high-risk individual kidnaps. By the time we get to political kidnap, if this problem is not solved, then this country is finished.
We'll come back to some of the issues that you've just raised now, Mr. Ejiofor, but let me go to Mr. Ojukwu. On the one hand is the issues raised by Mr. Ejiofor now about direct involvement of security personnel. On the other hand is that of alleged connivance of some security operatives. As he said, some of them hire their guns. And some have actually said that policemen, hire their guns to some of these bandits. How do you react to this?
We cannot rule out such incidences from happening. There are bad eggs everywhere, as you rightly said. There are bad eggs in Nigeria police. We know that of a truth. But the thing is, what is the police doing, the police high command doing about it? Are we taking it as normal or sweeping it under the carpet or just to allow it to become systemic? The answer is no. Every case will be dealt and treated on its own merit. Wherever an officer is found to have gone outside of his briefs to do what he ought not to do or fail to do what he ought to do, the police regulation is clear on what should be done with such person. So many have been arrested, so many have been dismissed, so many are facing prosecution for acts of misconduct and for things that lead to crime. So the police do not condone such iniquity or criminal tendencies. They normally deal with them. And I want to assure Nigerians and the general public, should they have any fear or any suspicion about the conduct of any policeman anywhere, they should pick up the courage and make a report to the next higher authority. Where they cannot, there are platforms the police has created. The complaint response unit is there online. With your phone, you can make a complaint.
Concerning the suggestion that you made that people should call those helplines, but you know, many are already saying that they're not exactly sure that they'll be willing to do that because the times and cases they've heard about those who tried to be of assistance, they eventually found themselves on the wrong end because their information was given out. So how does police respond to that?
Well, we've said it times without number that you must be wary to whom you give information. And security talk about need to share. Who do you give that information to? If you have valuable information as to a crime about to be committed, do not say because you are afraid it may leak, you don't report it. Anybody can be a victim of crime. Criminals are no respecters of persons. Let nobody shoot himself in the leg because he wants to withhold information based on fear that information may leak. Report to the appropriate person. There are police locations in over 7,000 places in this country. Where you don't have confidence in a particular one, look for another one, hire, and report. And these days, it has been made a lot easier. With your phone, you can hide your identity and call the police. This is about to happen to save yourself and everybody else from crime. Let nobody give you the excuse that he's afraid if he reports, he may become a victim. There have been instances I'm very much aware of persons who took cases to the police and the police officer turned the case against them. It's a misnomer. But then again, it depends. The police investigates everything. The police is trained to be suspicious of everything. Somebody could give an information to divert attention for something else to happen. So the police has to weigh into it and examine that information as to its veracity, as to its motive. It may take quite some time. But these days, technology has given us the leeway to make such reports on email, Twitter, ordinary phone. You call the police and they will do the needful. But let nobody desist from informing the police, because it is the responsibility of every Nigerian citizen to assist law enforcement officials in maintaining law and order. It is a civic responsibility. So when anybody fails to do that and something happens, all of us lose. Should we continue to lose? The answer is no.
Mr. Ejiofor, let me ask you this same question, but in a different way. The trust quotient of the people between the trust quotient between the people and security operatives, you would agree, needs a lot of work. How do we improve this?
Yeah, it borders on leadership. If the leaders, there's general leadership failure in Nigeria at all levels. So if the police, for instance, had the right leadership, like they do have now, the man sets the standard. Nobody will deviate from it, because I can tell you that Nigerians are very easy people to govern. They obey rules as long as they are stated. So police need to, with the new leadership, to build this confidence in the people. And how do you build confidence? If you are traveling on the road and the duty of the police is just to stop you, collect your particulars, and check, extort money from you, how can you get confidence of the people? Or when you see a police checkpoint, they say, "Good afternoon, sir. How are you? How is the journey?" I know by police training, they have, many of them are very intelligent. They can decipher. But because of the many bad eggs, they spoil the whole bunch. So the orientation of police has to be changed in terms of training. And how do you do training when you don't have the funds? You have to equip the police With modern technology, the funds are not there. That's why I'm still saying and I'm insisting that the state of emergency be declared in the security sector by funding security. It's not only the police, it's not only... That is why you see the army everywhere. Work that would have ordinarily been done by the police,
but Mr.
the army
Joffo,
takes over.
just as you
Yes.
were suggesting, when they see you on the road and they're not courteous or they ask you for a bribe, well, do they need training to stop harassing people and extorting money from them? They don't teach them that in the police college, do they?
In the police college, you are taught to be courteous to members. In fact, it's an offense for you to be uncivil to members of the public. It's a disciplinary offense. What I'm telling you, it comes down again to the recruitment process. Some people have just come into the police because they have nothing doing. They just want to earn a living. But if we are patriotic enough that, yes, we want to serve our country, the orientation will be different. And we have to change that orientation.
Oh, I know you can relate with this, but let me ask Mr. Ojukwu, then I'll get your response much later, Mr. Joffo. Mr. Ojukwu, I mean, we've heard many people say that, look, many of these cases of kidnapping that occur along some of these highways, expressways, the busy roads, they're usually checkpoints, either military collaborating with police, checkpoints in those areas. And where this kidnap happens is not too far from those kind of areas. So what do you think then happens? Because some think that there's a theory about conspiracy and collaboration between some agencies in-house with those bandits.
Okay, as we said earlier on, the bandits also, because this is an organized crime, they also have informants. The police or the military or whoever may be at a checkpoint somewhere to prevent crime. Then somebody passes in a motorcycle, you think it's just a commuter going his way. It's an informant. He may be an informant. And then he sees the gap. You cannot put police or the military or whoever at every spot on our roads. There must be gaps. You must give them gaps. So within these gaps, some criminals may seize the opportunity, capitalize on it, and then do what they want to do, which is an offense. It is always said that the opportunity makes the thief. They look for an opportunity between police checkpoints to commit their crimes. But the police has upped its game now. What I know that is being done along so many roads now is to have police motorized patrols, crisscrossing, going this way, the other group going the other way, so as not to give them that space at all. This is cost money. They require funding. They require vehicles. They require fueling. They require motivation for the men. They need allowance. But these things are just not there.
But Mr. Ojukwu, pardon me, let me just jump in. What I'm trying to also ask is that, because the announcements we've seen from the IGP and several other areas, these are the regular announcements, regular in terms of the same format and structure, operation this and that, which suggests, well, we're approaching it almost in a similar manner. But what I'm asking is, in light of the revelation or information by Mr. Joffo that, look, some of these persons are servicemen. So is there a plan or elaborate plan by the security agencies, the police in this case, wherein they will then say, look, well, haven't heard this. We're now looking inwards. You don't need motorized patrol to look inwards. Is there a plan for them to ensure that the police themselves? Are these people serving servicemen? Are they former servicemen? Who are they? How did they get in? We haven't heard if there's any such plan to internally beam the searchlights on those who wear the uniform.
Okay, I think that's a different kettle of fish altogether. Apart from deploying men on the roads, the police has always beamed satellites on its own personnel. That's why I have superintending officers watching out for their men. And there's one language the police uses which many officers don't find comfortable. They call it vicarious liability. If a policeman goes out of his way to collude with criminals and is caught, his supervisor has a lot of questions to answer. And nobody wants to answer such questions. And so every commander is up on his toes, watching the conduct, the back of his men. If men are deployed with arms and they leave their beasts to elsewhere, that officer will suffer reprimand for lacking supervision. So there are a lot of, we suspect everybody. The police suspect even his own men. The police is trained to be suspicious of everything. Even spouses are suspected. That's to the extent the police polices itself. If the police does not police itself, the police itself will be crushed, it will crumble and die. And nobody wants to head a dead body. And so I'm very much aware that the police high command are doing very much on that. And anybody who is caught doing what he ought not to do or failing to do what he ought to do is properly dealt with in line with the police regulation. A good number have been weeded out, and that was now going to National Assembly, wherever, asking to come back. No, the police doesn't want such people to return to the system and pollute the whole lot.
All right, Mr. Joffo, you know, while I did ask you why you had to wait this long before you disclosed that information, did you see sufficient response on the part of the security agencies to look internally and come up with some, if not more elaborate plan to police themselves internally? Because some suggest that if you did see that, you may not have come up with that part of information. So did you see that?
Well, you are very correct. I didn't see that. That's why I had to come out, so that Nigerians will support the security agencies to fish out these people. For instance, you see a private, a corporal, living above his means. Questions must be asked. That's what is called continuous vetting. When people are living above their means, you must ask questions. Even among our politicians, somebody who has nothing becomes a councillor today, the next day he's building a mansion. How did it come about the money? That's the corruption we're talking about. And part of our major problem is corruption. Like I said, I will not disclose the details of what I found there for security reasons. But suffice to say that there is connivance, there is conspiracy between the bandits and our security agencies, or agents, some of them. So the earlier we look inwards to weed out these people, otherwise it will be like somebody washing his sore, pretending that it's hurting. You're only deceiving yourself. So let us sanitize our security institutions to make sure that there's no way you can remove them completely, but let there be evidence that some people have been arrested, tried, and sent out of the service. Besides, again, like Mr. Ojukwu said, those who are being tried and sent out now take to crime because they have received the training. They become criminals. So how do you identify such people? So that is why I said that these problems we are having are multifaceted, and the solutions must also be multifaceted.
Speaking about solutions, Mr. Ojukwu, and then trying to anchor it on that community policing component which you spoke about, there's a school of thought that believes that officers and men shouldn't be posted out of their geographical zones to aid the community policing. What do you think of it?
Well, the bulk of police personnel in all the states that I know are indigents of those states. You may have the top hierarchy being officers from outside. There's no offense in that, and it has a lot of benefits. I'm from Anambra State. If I were to serve in Anambra, I never served in Anambra State. If I were to serve there, and then I began to do things that are untoward, I'm sure my village head will call me. Even my father, my uncles will say, man, that's not the way we brought you up. So there are checks and balances. But then I do know that if somebody within the first 18 years of his life was not properly brought up at home by the first number of schools he went to, by the time he becomes an adult at 18 and joins the police, you begin to find it difficult to bend the crayfish. But within police training, a lot is done to make officers follow the law, failing which they will have themselves to blame. The current move is to even have what they call special constables. Special constables are members of the community from ages 21 to 50, and not like 18 to 28 that the normal police are. This one now, these members of the community, special constables, recruited within their community, posted within their community for a year and more to serve their people. All these things help to bring the police closer to the people, and for the people to know that these policemen are our own people. We've had instances where officers were killed because somebody felt it doesn't belong to my religion, it doesn't belong to my ethnic group, it's a stranger coming to lord over us. Some officers have lost their lives in that. But by and large, the concept of community policing is to make every police officer, wherever he finds himself, because Nigeria Police is Nigeria Police, it's a federal police, anybody can serve anywhere the IG so decides to post him. The thing is to make them, wherever they go, work with the communities. What are their priorities? What are their hearts? Together, the police and the people unite to deal with problems
just one more thing
pertain to that particular community.
One more thing, Mr.
Ojukwu.
Just quickly before we go, why is it difficult for IGs, time and again, to at least, if not eradicate this question of having the policemen that people see on the road extorting them? Why is this almost impossible to deal with?
Well, it's not really the IG's problem. It's a matter of reorientation within the society. Once you are in a position of authority, many people look up to you for sustenance, for this and for that. So the demand side is higher. And it's tough on every public servant. Now, criminal tendencies are everywhere. People also corrupt people on our point of duty. We've seen governors collecting kickbacks here and there. They are not on the road, right in their offices. So corruption is just there. It's not a Nigerian war. It doesn't relate to police alone. Corruption is corruption. Okay, now, there's opportunity for corruption created by presence.
All right, we need to. I know that if I did ask you, why didn't you arrest them? I know you tell me they have immunity, so I'll let that fly. Mr. Manuel Ojukwu is the Provost, Police School of Public Relations, also retired Commissioner of Police. We also did have Mr. Mike Ejiofor, who is the former Director of SSS. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for your thoughts and time this morning.